Today is December the 22nd, and we're talking about how Jesus, when he came back from Egypt after fleeing the mania of Herod, he went to Egypt, and then when he came back, he found out that Herod's brother was reigning in that same district. And so Nazareth wasn't the first choice of Joseph and Mary for a place to live, but they decided to be safe, that they would settle in this region of Galilee, in this city, this town really, this nondescript place called Nazareth. You know, people made fun of Nazarenes. People made fun of them. It wasn't a good place to be from. It wasn't very reputable. But this was the town where Jesus grew up. This is the town where Jesus grew in favor with God, in favor with man. It's where he learned how to be a carpenter like his father Joseph. It's where he made friends. It's where he called his hometown. You know, you grow up, if you're a child, you're growing up here in Cary, North Carolina. This may or may not have been your parents' first choice. And you can tell your kids this, it may or may not have been your first choice in terms of living. It's a good place to live. But the fact is, it's the place where God has ordained for you to be and for your family to grow up. And even in this church, it's a place where God has called you to grow up. And you may or may not love living in Cary. You might have had aspirations to live somewhere else. Maybe your kids, if they're growing up and they have an opinion about where they live, maybe they'd rather live somewhere else. But this is the place that God has ordained. These are the friends that God has ordained for them. Even 2020 and COVID and the disconnection that we experience and our kids are even struggling with experiencing, this is where God ordained for them to grow up. And in this time, just like Jesus grew up and learned how to grow in his relationship with his Father in heaven and with people on earth, and he grew in wisdom and stature, favor with God and man, as it says in Luke 2:52. This is where we're called to grow up. And so we have to ask the question, what is God doing in my life? How is he growing me up? How is God using my circumstances to teach me about himself? You know, it's easy to think about Jesus as being someone who's so wholly different from us that we can't relate to him in aspects like childhood. Like, what was it like for him to grow up in that family? That might be an encouraging conversation for you to have with your kids, to show them that Jesus, yes, he was the king of the world. Yes, he would be the savior who would die on a cross, but he grew up as a man, just like you and like me. What was that like for Jesus? And what is God doing in your life and in your kids' lives to teach you about himself, even if you would say these are nondescript, even boring or frustrating circumstances? Talk to your kids about that tonight.